Hey up guys, how you doing? I hope you've all been good little boys and girls and Santa has brought you lots of lovely RC presents for Christmas. Me, I'm always in trouble, but luckily my son has got this WPL B16KM kit. And of course it's down to good old dad to build it for him. Bought him this kit because I thought I'd go for something a little bit different rather than just another Tamiya buggy that we've got to spend a fortune on upgrades for. And I wanted to get a kit because obviously kits are a lot more fun than out of the box stuff. Unfortunately, he's not got the patience. He's only 9, so he's not quite got the patience for going through a kit like this. And I think even for a grown-up, it's going to be quite a challenging build if you've not done something like this before. Compared to a Tamiya, it's going to be quite challenging anyway. So this is a WPL B16KM kit. KM means it's got all the metal upgrades with it. It is available as a plastic ready to run, and I think as a plastic kit as well, but I've gone for the metal kit. It wasn't too expensive either, about 90 quid ships, so yeah, I don't think that's too bad at all. And quality wise, I'm reasonably impressed so far from what I've seen. The plastic is nice and thick and strong. The mould lines are good. There doesn't appear to be any I don't know what you call flashing, that's it. There doesn't appear to be any flashing on it, so it's all come out nice and clean. And I've had a quick look over the metal running gear as well. The axles obviously are monkey metal, they're not machined, so you can't expect machined components for 90 quid, but it's all monkey metal from what I've seen so far. But I'm not complaining yet. I'm going to reserve judgment until it's all built up. Now, oh, this is the box it came in, by the way. It's only basically a shoe box. That's it compared to a Tamiya box, so you can see the size difference between them. And everything's packed in there, nice and neat, tyres, everything else. There's plenty of people done videos on these things already. And to be honest, for most of today, Boxing Day, I've been looking up all the videos and Googling it myself on the best way to get it built. There are some instructions, but I don't really know how much use they're going to be. I mean, it gives you a general idea of what you need to do, but yeah, you can just use the instructions, just have a look at really and see what parts you get and see which order they go together. But the instructions are for the plastic kit, they're not for the metal upgrades anyway. And so there's the metal upgrade versions has CV joints and bearings and things on it, whereas a plastic kit is just your own bushings and pin and slot joints, drive cups. And then that one, good grief, that's going to take some figuring out as well. Luckily for me as well, there's plenty of guys that have done this already on YouTube and Google. Plenty of guys talking in the forums about it. So I'm just going to get on and crack on with it. It's going to take a few cups of tea, I think, as well. At least half a dozen cups of tea, but yeah, we'll get it done. I've been thinking about how to shoot this video as well, whether to time-lapse it or how best to do it. But I think I'm just going to build a stage off camera, build sections of it off camera, and then put the camera on, put my phone on and show you what I've done, and just talk through it a little bit like that. I don't really think you want to watch me staring at parts for 10 minutes before I decide which way they go together, and then obviously I've then trying to unscrew things and screw them back together again and messing about and trial and error and everything else. So I'm just going to figure things out, put sections together, and then do a little clip when I've put each section together. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this video. Hope you can sit down, relax, enjoy it with me, and we'll crack on. Right, I've done a bit of organising. These are all the metal parts for the truck, basically all the metal running gear. The kit, when you get the kit, it comes with the plastic parts as well as the metal ones. So you need to separate out the plastic parts from the metal ones so you can be sure you're using the correct ones. Basically, these ones are for the plastic running gear. So you've got plastic bushings, plastic drive hexes and monkey metal gear on there. For the metal upgrades, you need to build everything up yourself. So we've got some axles in there, we've got a set of gears in there, set of brass gears, and basically I've got all the metal parts out. This is the steering parts for the steering, so we don't need those yet. So what we have got so far is we've got 20 small bearings and 4 larger ones, loads of grub screws and an Allen key, lots of hardware there, and these are the pins and the barrels for making up the CV joints. There's also some washers or shims in there as well, and some spring clips. Not quite figured out what those are for yet. It's 6x6 by the way, this truck, so there's 6 wheels. So we've got 2 solid axles and a steering axle as well that goes on the front. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 drive hexes, 3 prop shafts and 2 CV joints with hexes on the end for the steering, and then we've got 6 cups, if you like, that make up the end of the prop shafts. So there's 3 prop shafts, each of those has one of these on the end, so 6 of these, and these are CV joints as well. Grease axles, Loctite, another bag of metal parts there, your steering knuckles and your diff covers in there. Right, I'm just quickly showing you what we've got so far. Right, that took some doing. It took me about probably half an hour to make these up. So we've got 6 ends of 3 prop shafts now. Well, there's 5 there and just 1 left to make up. So we've got the prop shaft itself. Prop shaft itself, what I'm calling a barrel, a pin and a retainer clip. So the barrel goes in the end of the prop shaft, the drive cup goes over the end, the pin through all the holes once they're lined up, and then the retainer clip goes over the end of the drive cup and holds it all together, stops the pin from falling out. There we go then, that's 6 prop shafts that have been made up. I've just used the blue grease that was supplied with the kit, been applying it with a cocktail 6, so there's 6 prop shafts made up. You don't get any spares, so you have to be very careful not to lose anything. The 6 shims or washers that are left over, I'm going to use those on the end of the prop shafts where they meet up with the diffs. Okay, so this is half of one of the axles that's made up. We've got the shaft running through the middle, drive hex at each end, a crown wheel, crown gear there. There's no diffs, it's solid axles. The crown gear's there, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bearings as well. When you make it up, all this is floating, so you have to set it by tightening this grub screw with the drive hexes, pressing ever so slightly against the bearings at each end to hold everything in place. So if you push them in too hard and tighten the hex up, you push them in too hard, too far, tighten the hex up, the drive shaft won't spin freely, the axle won't spin freely. And so this is set up now, so this one's tightened up and this one's tightened up here. This one is still loose because I'm going to use it to set the mesh when it meshes with the pinion. The axles will only allow you to put the crown gear in one way round. If you look, you can see there how the crown gear is set inside the diff housing. So it will only allow you to put it in one way round, which hopefully means that all the wheels will rotate in the same direction when it's built up. Here's the axle with the crown wheel inside it, the crown gear inside, drive hexes on each end and 4 bearings in the middle, all locked up nice and tight. I've set the mesh already using the diff cover with the pinion already in there, and half of a prop shaft attached to it, and that's set in there as well. Now I saw a guy on YouTube using these paper gaskets to give it a bit of clearance, because when you do put these two together and test it, it does feel a bit grindy on the gears. So I'm going to use 2 paper gaskets and see how we go on. So there we go, that's one of the axles made up there. Took a bit of doing, took a lot of adjustments, and to get it spinning nice and freely. But now it is spinning nice and free. Yeah, nice and smooth, nice and free. Very happy with it. Very happy with the quality. It's nice and heavy. It's got a good bit of weight to it, so it should have plenty of traction on the tyres. So yeah, very happy with that. I said I was going to reserve judgment on the quality. Well, I've not had to do any fettling. There's nothing that didn't fit together properly or anything like that. All fitted together well. It's just a case of taking your time and setting all the grub screws right, setting all the axles and the wheel hexes, the bearings, getting them all sat in properly. Just a case of taking your time with it, and when you do, it fits together really well. Right, that's better. It's running a lot smoother now. I put the shim in the wrong place. I'd used the shim somewhere. Well, I shouldn't have used it. I put it here, in between the drive cup and the diff housing. The shims are actually for aligning the crown gear inside the diff housing. I just used one shim to hold the crown gear over to one side to stop it floating around whilst I was putting it together, and it's running really smooth now. There's a slight bit of notchiness in it that will soon, because the brass gears, it will soon wear down. It'll soon bed in once I start using it, but yeah, it's a lot better now. Right, on with the next one. Okay, so we're on with the front axle now. 4 bearings, 1 drive shaft, 1 crown gear, and I've just put 1 shim in, just there, in between the crown wheel, crown gear and the bearing there. And I've centered the drive shaft as best I can. I've eyeballed it basically, and then nipped up this grub screw here. I'll crank them all tight later, but it's just nipped up for now. I've got these universal drive shafts to put on now. Right, here we go then. Here's the front axle assembled as far as the UJs, the crown gear and the axle itself and the bearings is concerned. It took a bit of fettling and setting up with shims and whatever. It was probably to do with the powder coating on the axle housing itself, interfering with some of the rotating parts, but I've got it all set up now nicely, so I'm just going to start screwing it together. One of the things I was conscious of is making sure it was aligned through the centre line of the kingpins as well. So if you imagine a line through the centre line of where the kingpins go, it needs to go directly through the middle of the universal joint as well, through the pins, if you like, of the universal joint, so you can, in order to get nice smooth steering. Alright. Right, that's the front axle assembled, greased up, bolted together. Runs nice and smooth. Really nice and smooth actually. Took a bit of time getting it all set up properly with the shims and the gaskets and the trying to reduce the play in it as well. So yeah, that's that. I've got these knuckles to put on now. So a couple of knuckles here, there's some bearings to go in them, those 4 there, they go in the knuckles, and then we've got some brass sleeves, if you like, some brass sleeves to go on the hubs, and I've got to figure out which screws go in them as well. There we go then, there's 2 axles made up. Front axle here with the steering knuckles on. It's all nice and smooth. You've got brass collets on the top there where the metric thread goes through into the hub, so that's working nice and smoothly. It doesn't freewheel too much, it doesn't spin, but it is nice and smooth when you turn it, and there's hardly any, well, there's no play in it either, so I'm happy with that. Got half a prop shaft on there ready for assembly, and then the rear axle which you saw earlier. Now on with the middle axle. Here we go then. These are the steering links. One long steering rack, one steering arm from the servo, 3 ball joints, and the plastic links that go on the end. I'm going to assemble this now. There we go then, that's the front axle built up with the steering on it. Seems to work pretty well. This bottom steering rack here, this arm, goes on the inner holes and mounts on the bottom of the knuckles. And then we've got this link here that will go up to the servo. We're making up the central axle now. This has got its own little transmission in the middle of it.
Oh, transmission, eh? Okay.
Yeah, it's got a little transmission, yeah. Say hello, William.
Hello, I'm William.
Don't tell me your surname, it's secret. Try again. Say hello, William.
Hello, my name's not William.
Just say hello, I'm William.
Hello, I'm Will.
Right, say hello, William.
Hello, William.
No, say hello, I'm William.
Hello, I am Will.
That's it, okay.
I said Will.
That's fine.
Okay.
And the instructions aren't, you don't get any instructions for these parts with the kit. So you have to go online to the WPL website to get them. But it's all there. Let's crack on. That's the first part of the gearbox made up there. Little pinion gear in there. An idle gear. And there's a bearing on the end, ready to go inside this case, and we've got another shaft to make up now. Okay, this is the centre axle made up with the transfer case, if you like, with the transmission as well, that's made up. Unfortunately we've hit a bit of a problem, and let me explain why. This kit is a WPL B16KM. KM means it's got the metal upgraded axles and drivetrain. The instructions that came with the B16 kit were just for the plastic versions, so there's no metal upgrade instructions with the kit. I've had to go online to the WPL website and find instructions for the metal kit, but the only ones I can find are for the B36KM. Now, as far as I can tell, these two trucks are the same, apart from the cab that's on top and the truck part of it, apart from the plastics. So the running gear is all the same. Okay, so I'm using these B36KM instructions to make up the B16KM drivetrain. I can't see it being any different. So here's the transfer case here, made up to these instructions at the top here. And here is the central axle made up to these instructions here. Now you can see on these instructions the crown wheel there, and it indicates the direction it goes, and the crown wheel will only fit one way round inside this diff housing, you can see there. So I've made it up as per the instructions, as you can see there. And then if you look at the greyed out section here, it shows this diff casing going in from the front, if you like, with this axle in this orientation. Unfortunately, it does not fit from the front. You have to either turn this over so the transfer shaft is at the bottom, not at the top, it won't fit with it at the top, or put it on the back that way around. Now what that means is this axle, where's it gone? There it is. This axle will rotate in a different direction as to what's shown in the instructions here, but this is the only way it will fit, so we'll have to hope it works. What do you think, Scooby?
Why, whoa!
Useless dog. Right, so I've made this rear axle up as it fits together, and it's different from the instructions. The pumpkin on the instructions is on this side, not this side, but if I turn this transfer case over the other way up, so the pumpkin is on that side and the transfer shaft is at the top, it doesn't fit together. So we'll see what happens. I'm on with the suspension now. Right, I've been trying to figure the suspension out from all these little pieces we've got here. It looks like we build it up with a little plastic piece there, spring on top, then a plastic spring, and then a shorter plastic spring. This clip holds them all together. This clip holds them all together, and a couple of self-tappers on the top. We'll try that. Here we go then, that's a pair of leaf spring suspension units made up. The rotate on this flange screw here that's held on a plastic spigot, so that will be how it rocks around when it's all mounted up. There's the other one there. Another piece of the suspension made up here, what's called an axle bridge, 2 links on it, held on with 2 shoulder self-tappers. There we go, another 4 pieces made up there. 4 links and 4 tabs held together with 4 shoulder screws, self-tappers. When I say shoulder screws, I mean screws like that with a little shoulder on them. Okay, these plastic tabs, they are handed, so they're different on one side to the other. See, they're smooth on that side, and they've got an oval shaped recess in that side around the holes. Right, slowly coming together now, slowly but surely. Here we go then, we're starting to mount the suspension to the axle now. This is the rear axle, and we've got a plastic bracket on top there, and then that's sandwiched, the axle is sandwiched underneath by these 2 parts, the links and the tabs we made up earlier, and that sandwiches the axle in between the suspension there. Quick update on the issue I mentioned earlier with this middle axle not being put together the right way round. So I've put it together the opposite way to which it shows on this stage of the instructions. Put it together the opposite way around. But if we go down to the next stage of the instructions, where is it? There it is, look. So here it's actually shown in the instructions the same way that I've built it. So that's good. Okay, this is the centre axle made up with the brackets for the suspension and the links attached to it. Now, I know I was making fun earlier on of the instructions with all the arrows all over the place. I think I was having a bit of a laugh at this section here, which is the plastic instructions, but it's a very similar idea for the metal ones. And from the WPL website, you do get this set here for the KM kit. I know it looks a bit like I know it looks a bit confusing, but once you've actually got all the parts assembled here, it's pretty obvious how it goes together. There we go then, that's the rear suspension and drivetrain assembly all put together. It's a bit fiddly, but you just take your time and work through it. Quality wise, yeah, it's pretty good. I've not stripped any of the threads on the screws, so the plastic's nice and solid. The only thing I've had to do is trim a bit of flashing off from the where the plastic was moulded, but it's no big deal. So yeah, all seems to be working really well. It's all independent. Prop shaft's connected up. Yeah, we're looking good. On with the next stage, which is putting the chassis together. I've just stuck half of a prop shaft on the front of this assembly, turn it round. Good news is all the wheels are rotating in the same direction. The axles are rotating in the same direction, which means the wheels will go that way as well. Excellent. Right, it's taking some doing this, guys. Thanks for stopping with me so far. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am, because it is a really enjoyable build, but it's taking some time to do. I'm on at least my third cup of tea by now. Next stage is the making up the chassis itself. So we're going to use one side of the chassis rail, and we're going to mount in front servo tray, gearbox and motor. The servo goes in that mount there, servo horns and things, and a couple of spacers or braces, if you like, for the back of the truck. Let's get those mounted up. That's one side of the chassis rail bolted on with all the fittings. So we've got the rear tail lights and spacer, rear transmission bogie, a brace there. This is the gear change servo with the gearbox and the motor, and then the front servo tray with what looks like a couple of suspension mounts on there. Before I bolt the other side on, I'm going to do some googling and YouTubing and seeing what people have done with the electrics and the servo, the steering servo and things on the front. So we'll be on with the next stage soon. Okay, but I've put the other chassis rail on now on the other side. Just secured it lightly with 3 screws. I haven't put all the screws in yet, just secured it lightly in there. Fortunately, I've made a mistake at the front here. These leaf springs, they hook into one side and screw into the other on these, but I've put 4 screw type tabs in, tags, whatever you want to call them, on there. So I need to swap these 2 front ones here for ones with a bar inside that I can hook the leaf spring over there. Alright, so here we go then. Here's the front axle with the leaf spring suspension mounted on it. These clips here, I'm going to mount these onto the chassis along with the suspension, so it fits up underneath there. Oops, fits up underneath like that. Alright, so let's get that mounted on. Here we go then. Got the front axle mounted on now. All the prop shafts connected up. And the rear bogie as well, like we saw before. Loads of movement in this rear section. Should work really well. Suspension working, and in the front as well. Got suspension working there. Alright, I've got a bit of adjusting to do on the servo link there. Let me just get you the right angle. I've got a bit of adjusting to do on the servo link. You can see this link is too long. I need to adjust it by turning the end caps down and screwing it into the rod. Right, there we go then. I've just figured out I can turn the light on my phone whilst I'm recording a video, so hopefully it might make things a bit easier for you to see. Okay, so the front axle, the front hubs are straight, but the steering horn is a bit of an angle. I've tightened those end caps down on that bar on the steering link as far as I can. So I'll just have to do a bit of looking around on the internet, just consult the instructions and see if I can figure out why it's like that. But yeah, I'm very happy with it now. I think I'm going to wire the motor up and the electrics and give it a bit of a test next and see what happens. Put the wheels on as well, of course, and see how it goes. Right, we're getting a bit further. Chassis is all assembled now. There's a few screws that I need to just go around and check and tighten up, because I left them loose on purpose whilst I was getting everything adjusted properly. So I've got some electrics wired up to it now, using a NiCad battery, Tamiya ESC, FlySky controller, FlySky receiver, and FlySky transmitter as well. I'm using this transmitter because it's got multiple channels on it, and it's got model memory as well. This is what I use for my other cars. Okay, so currently working. So you got, turn it on, might help. There we go. Right, forwards, reverse. That's first gear. Yeah, that's first gear. Second gear. Reverse and second gear. There we go, and the steering's working as well. Alright, now we've got to figure out how to get it all wired up. Right, I've just been figuring out how I'm going to do this wiring. And I've just fitted a bit of bodywork on as well, just temporary, to see how I can route the wires. I want to try and do it, I want to try and be able to take the bodywork off without disconnecting the wires and disconnecting and threading them back out through the bodywork. So yeah, I want to be able to take the bodywork off without having to disconnect any of the cables. The chassis is all fitted together really well, not really had to do any fettling. The bodywork was a different story on the bodywork. The bumper doesn't fit on there with the cab aligned like that, so I'm going to have to trim a few bits off those two green tabs off the front of the cab. They want trimming down a bit. This bed, I don't know if you can see those little plastic tabs sticking out underneath. Yeah, two at the back, two at the front. They're stopping the bed from sitting down properly on the chassis rail, so I'm going to have to cut those off. There's these little saddle packs as well, where the screw holes don't line up properly on the chassis, so I'm going to have to do something about that. Figure out somewhere to mount my switch as well. I might put that in this little box here. So I'm going to tidy all this crap up and then we'll have to get busy with the Dremel and get fettling. Alright, so I've just been trimming a bit off the bottom of the flatbed. Just trimmed a bit off the bottom here to get it to sit properly on here. We don't need this middle mounting point here because obviously there's this rear bogie in the way, so it's just going to mount through that hole there and that hole there. So yeah, but just been trimming that down so that works okay. Up front, this black plastic tray sits under the bonnet and holds your electrics. The battery, I'm going to make a battery box up and put it on the flatbed, but for now we've got plenty of room inside this little plastic tray to put the ESC and the receiver. Unfortunately, because it's a big thick Tamiya ESC with a heatsink on, when this tray is in, the bonnet won't close. Here's the bonnet, so the bonnet won't shut, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim some plastic off this lower part here of the tray to lower it down so it sits lower, so all the electrics will sit slightly lower, and then hopefully the bonnet will close. In order to get a good line around the edge of this, I'm going to put some of this earth tape on, and I'm going to pick one of these lines and cut to that so we get a nice straight line. I'm using this bench grinder with a flex cable on the end. Gives me a lot more torque than you get from a normal Dremel. And I've got these little saws, this saw disc set that I'm using. Got one on the end there, small one on the end. Here we go, so I've put my earthing tape around the bottom part of this plastic tray. I'm going to cut to the bottom of the middle green line, and that should take about 5mm off the bottom of the tray to lower it down to hopefully fit this big chunky ESC inside. Okay, there we go. I've trimmed that about 5mm off the bottom of that plastic tray, and I've obviously trimmed the mounting posts that come up from the servo tray as well. So it still left me enough room underneath this tray, because that's where I'm going to put my motor connections under there. But you can see there, or hopefully you can see there, that it's given me a bit more room to mount my electrics inside. Here we go then. What do you reckon? Very happy with this. It's all together now. It's all tested. All the electrics are in. I've not finished off this bit here because I'm not sure if I'm going to put the battery here or not. We'll make a box for it on the trailer. But all the electrics are in now. Oops, there we go. Tamiya ESC, FlySky receiver, power switch, aerial, and all the little cables. Even the lights are connected up as well, the headlights. Gearbox is connected. So you need a receiver with at least 4 channels on it. I painted it as well, so we've got silver and black at the front, and then I've used Tamiya dark green on the body and the trailer. It's a lovely, I don't know how well it's coming out on camera, but it's a lovely rich dark green, similar to the old Land Rovers. The old Land Rover Discoveries with this sort of colour. So yeah, there we go. We'll get it running soon. Maybe in the next video.